This is the new Pixel 10a, and not only could it be one of the best mid-range phones of 2026, but it could very well be the best phone to buy in 2026. Allow me to explain. So this phone has a lot that I really like about it, and I'm not saying it's better than the S25 Ultra. I'm saying this could potentially be a better buy for a lot of people. There's many people who don't need to spend $1,200 on a phone to get the best experience that they would personally use. And a $500 phone that checks all the right boxes could easily be an excellent purchase. And in fact, could even be a better purchase because this has some other advantages that a lot of flagships don't have. For example, last year we had the very slim Pixel 9a where the camera bump was almost non-existent. This year, it is literally non-existent. There is no camera bump, it's completely flush, and it makes it a very pleasant and minimal experience when using this phone. It's way more pocketable, and you don't need to worry about like your phone wobbling when you set it down. It's not gonna get hung up on your pocket, and I know a lot of people use a case anyway, but I don't know, I think it's kind of cool to have a camera that is not extruding from the back of your phone. That's a big benefit on the Pixel 10a. Another update this year is that you now have satellite SOS. In the past, that was always something that really pushed me towards originally iPhones when they had it, and then, the Pixel came out with it, and it pushed me towards the flagship phones because I'm somebody who goes off-grid fairly often, whether you're hiking, backpacking, doing stuff like that, and if you get hurt, satellite SOS could very well save your life. So maybe it's like a little bit of like a fear in the back of my mind, and that's why I do that, but I think it's really nice to see that really big flagship feature rolling down to a $500 phone like the Pixel 10a. And to use this, you just go into satellite SOS and you kind of aim it at the sky and it lines up with some satellites and you're able to send messages and get help like that. As far as what's under the hood of the Pixel 10a, we have the same Tensor G4 processor as the flagship Pixel 9 and Pixel 9 Pro, and although the Tensor is not winning any awards in the flagship category, it can stutter, it's far from the Snapdragon series, but in the mid-range category, it's a solid chip. It definitely gets the job done, and still, one little complaint is that you should notice this is not a new chip from the Pixel 9a. The Pixel 9a and 10a both have the same Tensor G4, while the flagship Pixel 10 and 10 Pro are both using the Tensor G5. So how much of a difference is it really going to be? Honestly, probably not that much different. The Tensor chips are always just one notch away from the Snapdragon flagships, but they're still pretty solid chips and they're pretty good at a lot of the AI tasks that Google really focuses on with these phones. And speaking of phones, like plural, there's 4 different colors. So you've got 2 that are pretty subtle, pretty neutral, and 2 that are much more vibrant. You've got Fog and Obsidian, kind of like a white and kind of a blackish colorway. And then you've got Berry and Lavender, much more vibrant, honestly kind of fun colors, and of course you can get a case that would change it entirely. You have aluminum rails on the outside, much like the Pixel 9a, and you have a composite back on the back of the phone. The aluminum rails are 100% recycled aluminum, which is pretty cool. Aluminum's super easy to recycle, so it's nice they do that. And the plastic back is about 80% recycled polymer. And actually a lot of this phone has recycled materials. Cobalt in the battery, tungsten in the haptics. It's kind of nice to see that. Now, this phone, talking about the display and the front and everything, it's going to be very familiar again, much like the Pixel 9a. You've got a 1080p display, 60 to 120 hertz, so very smooth refresh rate, 6.3-inch display. Now you have thinner bezels all the way around, although fairly chunky bezels compared to flagships. I have to say, it's one of those things that last year I used the Pixel 9a for several months, and I'm somebody who, I test phones for a living, so I have access to some pretty incredible phones, and yet, when you're using this, you kind of stop seeing the bezels after just about a week. Nonetheless, they're chunky, and I'll give you that. Now, this is also a more durable phone than the Pixel 9a because now we have Corning Gorilla Glass 7i on the front, so a little bit more tough. Also, you can unlock this, again, much like before, fingerprint sensor, PIN, Face ID, the same usual stuff. And again, the battery is also the same as last year, 5,100 milliamp hours. Now they're rating that for 30 hours of regular use and 120 hours in extreme power saving. So again, if you're like doing a lot of camping or just not gonna be plugged in for a couple days, you could do that. And you can also charge this marginally faster. I think the wired and the wireless charging each got an increase of about 3 watts each. So, I mean, I promise there's some more differences, but for the most part, this is a really familiar phone. I'm naming a lot of things that are just like the 9A, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Google doesn't tell me exactly what the sensor is in the phone, but they said the specs are the same as last year, 48 megapixel primary rear sensor and 13 megapixel ultra wide. You do have a very limited zoom capability on this. You can zoom into, depending on video or photo, about like 5 to 8x, but the zoom is respectable in quality. It's kind of usable, and even though you can't zoom into 100x, I mean, if you were trying to zoom in that far on this, I don't think it'd really be usable anyway. So the lack of a telephoto lens is kind of expected in this price range, although there are phones from Nothing, for example, that do have a telephoto lens, and if you want, I can make comparisons between this phone and other mid-range phones. Just leave comments below. Whichever phones get the most comments, I will be making comparisons with this one. Also, video quality on this, 4K on both the front and the rear lenses. It's a Pixel, so the video's not going to be as strong as the photos, but it's definitely getting a lot better, and really my only complaint now with the video, because I think it looks pretty solid, is going to be the stabilization. Sometimes it's a little bit weird when you pan, but again, that's just kind of a Pixel thing. We also have the usual Pixel camera experience, so a big AI focus here. Google's trying to push everyone towards Camera Coach is their new feature that they had on the Pixel 10, and basically it's like it'll guide you to take photos and tell you what to do. I mean, as somebody who kind of uses a camera for a living, I don't know if I see that much use in it, but at the same time, I know a lot of people are not really that good at taking photos, and they probably could use this, but I'm curious, like, have you ever used Camera Coach? And if so, have you found it helpful? I've seen some pretty poorly framed photos out there, and maybe people should use it, but I'm just not quite sure if it's a gimmick or really a useful feature. Aside from the cameras, again, getting back to the internals of this phone, same specs as last year, 8 gigs of RAM and either 128 gigs of storage or 256 gigabytes of storage if you upgrade to that larger one. You don't have expandable storage, once again, like I said, and you still get a lot of the same software features and experience as the flagship phone. So you're getting the whole Google Call suite, including Hold For Me, which I use all the time. Like you call the IRS or something, they put you on hold, you just say hold for me, you don't have to listen to that music, and it'll notify you when somebody's back on the line. You also have call screening, filters out a ton of spam, and just unknown numbers. It can use Google Assistant basically and say, hey, like, what's up, who is this? And once they tell, Google Assistant who it is, it'll then tell you, and you can answer the phone. Pretty cool feature. And the one that I personally use the most is Direct My Call. Again, if you're calling the IRS, or if you're calling anyone that has like press 1 for this, press 2, Google shows you all of that on the screen, and you can navigate so much faster without having to wait for it to read every single item in the list. You also get all of the Google AI features on here, and I'm not a huge AI user on my phone. Like, I use Gemini and I use ChatGPT, but a lot of times these phone companies are just like throwing too much stuff out there. However, some of them are pretty neat. Google's photo editor allows you to use natural language, so you could just ask it like, hey, change the bricks to more of a reddish color or change someone's outfit to blue, and it can do all of that very easily. The ultra-wide lens, and this is kind of rare for the mid-range category, a lot of times they add it as a third useless lens, but the ultra-wide can also be used for macro shots, so if you get really close, you've got autofocus on there, and it'll focus and essentially give you a much better macro shot than you would if you had like a 2 megapixel macro lens. I find those incredibly useless, and this is kind of a cool feature to have. Okay, so summary of the Pixel 10a. What's actually different about it? Satellite SOS is probably the biggest one in my opinion. You also have that a complete lack of a camera bump. We've got new colors on here. We've got some improvements to the display, smaller bezels, faster charging, just kind of across the board iterative improvements that it's not going to be a big overhaul. Like if you have the 9A, you probably don't want to upgrade to the 10A. And in fact, if you're in the market to buy one of these phones, you might want to buy the 9A. It's $100 off right now, and you're getting kind of the same phone. Like you're getting the same cameras, you're getting the same processor, and things like that. By the way, this phone and the 9A were both rated for 7 years of software and OS updates, so it's pretty great that that's a future-proof design and phone here, but yeah, it's gonna be a fairly boring phone. This is a phone that is minimal, it works, it gives you good software, very clean, minimal experience, solid cameras, solid battery life, wireless charging, really everything, like I said, that most people would want. Is it going to be better than the top tier flagship phones? No, not at all, because this doesn't even have a telephoto lens. But is it going to be a better purchase for most people? I would say probably, actually. I think a lot of people could spend $500 and have the exact same phone experience they would get if they bought a flagship, because a lot of people just wouldn't use all of the flagship features like reverse wireless charging, for example. So, hope you found this video helpful. Like I said, leave a comment and let me know what I should compare this to. Whatever phones get the most comments will be getting a comparison video. Thanks for watching. I'm Michael Bryan, and I'll see you in those comparisons.